Welcome to the Jag Bros podcast. We are three brothers, diehard Jags fans, even when the Jaguars lose heartbreakers like they did week one, 20-17 against the Dolphins, had the game in the bag and just let it slip away. So today is really going to be like group therapy for us and for all Jags fans. So jump in the comments wherever you're listening to this, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to, engage with us. But I'm Jack along with JT and Joey. Joey's joining us remote today, and we're sorry we're a little bit later, just been crazy couple days, but we wanted to give you our thoughts on the Jags game. So Joey, what are your overall thoughts from the game on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, it was extremely disappointing, absolute gut punch that pretty much one play changed the entire outcome of this game. It was a little bit almost like the entire 2023 season wrapped up in one game. You start off super hot, everything's going really well. You're almost the AFC championship champions, and then all of a sudden you're falling apart and you can't seem to put it back together. And then that's how this game was. Had the game in hand, Etienne could have put it into the end zone 24/7. Instead, fumble it, and then one play later, it's now 17-14, and game's really, really close. So it's just sad that we couldn't seem to really bring it back. The energy on this team, when things go down, they seem to crumble, and that needs to change.
Well, Jaguars fans, it's Groundhog Day yet again. How many times are we sitting here on a Monday or Tuesday talking about another heartbreaking loss? There's a singer on YouTube. His name's Ryan Parker, and he sings a few different NFL parody songs. And one of the songs he has that I always think about for the last 10 years with the Jaguars, it's titled, "How Many Ways Can You Lose a Game?" And it goes something like this. It says, when the offense fails, the D is in sync. When the O does well, the defense stinks. When both show up to play, special teams gives the game away, or the referees are the ones to blame. Ways can you lose a game? And that's what it felt like on Sunday. It felt like, how many different ways can we figure out how to lose a game? That nobody snatches defeats like the Jaguars do in the jaws of victory. You had victory within your grasp. And Joey, you talk about the one play that everybody's talking about. I actually have a little bit different take on that play and just that whole kind of sequence there. But it's so infuriating. I think your analogy of 2023 is spot on. I think that's really nice to do that comparison. But for me, this reminded me a lot of a different Jaguars game when we were in New England, up double digits in the second half, and Miles Jack was down play, where all Jaguar fans would say he wasn't down, or excuse me, he was down, and if that play had gone the way the Jaguars wanted to, we probably are winning that game and going to the Super Bowl. But the reality is, just like the Etienne fumble, you're still up double digits with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And what do? You go give up an 80-yard bomb. You go throw up on yourselves 4 times in a row in back-to-back drives, going 3 and out 5 of the 6 drives in the second half. To me, there's so much more to this game than just a fumble by a player who fumbled 0 times last year. So for me, that reminded me a lot of the New England game where, yes, if that one play did not go the way that, if the one play did not turn out maximum worst pain for the Jaguars, then it's probably a different game. But we still had the chance to win both of those games despite that one play, and we just completely folded.
Jags fans are mad at Etienne for that fumble. They're mad at Kirk for 2 drop third down passes. They're mad at Anton Harrison for giving up 2 sacks. But you know who I'm most upset at? I'm mad at myself for believing in the hype yet again that this was going to be different. All offseason, I was saying, no, I'm going to stay level-headed. And the week before, I'm like, you know what? The Jags they're different. They're going to go get 10 wins. They're going to go get 11 wins. Nope, this was the same 9-8 team. We may have 3 years in a row of 9-8. And all I'm saying is, if Shad Khan is saying, hey, this is the most talented Jaguars team ever, and we finished 9-8 and missed the playoffs back-to-back years, heads better roll.
I'm not as Debbie Downer as maybe you are, Jack. I think this still win 11 games, honestly. It's just the first game, but it's just really difficult to deal with, knowing that we had the victory in our grasp. and let it go. I do think that this team can turn around. There was a lot of good things that came out of this. BTJ looked like possibly a number one wide receiver out the gate. Savage played really, really well. It was pretty much every person that was new to the team played well versus all the people that were on the team last year. Christian Kirk, lots of drops. Evan Ingram wasn't targeted very often, also had drops. And Etienne was outplayed by Tank Bigsby, which I can't wait to hear what y'all have to think about that. But just wanted more out of this team. I really hope that this season lights a fire under them, and then we see a team that even if things go wrong, that they can bring it back.
Yeah, and Joey, you're spot on. And what we typically do during these breakdowns is we'll start on the offensive side of the ball, and then we'll go to the defensive side of the ball, and look at each one of those, as well as special teams and any coaching decisions that transpired during that game. And on the offensive side of the ball, in some respects, Jacksonville looked awesome in the first half of the game, but in the totality, there was a lot of question marks, especially in the second half. The Jaguars finished with 267 yards. Below average day. They only had 50 plays on offense, which is one of the lowest totals all season. Most teams average somewhere between 60 65 plays per game. We had 162 passing yards and 128 rushing yards. Let's start with the quarterback play in Trevor's play. How would you guys grade what Trevor did? What were his highs and lows?
All right, I'm ready. All last year, I was light on Trevor. And look, the reality is Trevor did not lose this game. He was fine. Yet again, he made some good throws. The throw to Brian Thomas Jr. in the end zone was incredible. NFL posted it. He threw BTJ open. Awesome first touchdown of Brian Thomas Jr.'s career. But to go 12 for 21, 162 yards and a touchdown, no, he did not lose the game. There were some drops. There was a lot of missed blocks, all that, but he has not done enough to win games. And if you're going to be now the second highest paid quarterback in the entire league, $275 million, it's time to call out Trevor. It's time to call him higher. He needs to make more plays to win games. If you want to give a grade, B- per usual, but he just did not do enough to get the game won for the Jags. That final drive of a run for no yards and then a sack, that's fine. But to take that second sack, yes, that's on Anton Harrison, but you have to have a hot read to get rid of the ball quick. You can't get the ball with 4 minutes to go in a tied game and go 3 and out and lose 15 plus yards. That's just unacceptable if you're going to be the face of the franchise, one of the top paid players in the NFL.
I have a completely different take. I got a little brain rot from Jack's take right there. Trevor had nothing lost.
That's what he said.
That's what I said, but he didn't do enough to win.
No. You said he didn't do enough to win, and
yes,
he wasn't minus. No, not at all. He had an A performance. It's not
what?
His fault. No. It is not his fault that we decided to run it just in time as we threw it, which is crazy, as we just paid Trevor all this money. It's not his fault that we ran no new plays for Jay, even though he was the number one wide receiver in that first half. It is not his fault that his offensive line decided to absolutely crumble at the end, and Anton Harrison looked like he was a rookie again. None of that was his fault. None of it was a missed throw by Trevor. Trevor had one missed throw. He overthrew Evan Ingram, and it was almost a pick. That was it. That was the only play where I was like, oh, Trevor, calm down. Every other play was on the money, and it was either a drop by his best friend, Christian Kirk, or it just was a dumb decision to run the ball by the coaches. It has nothing to do with Trevor. Trevor did very well. If he plays the same way, but we give him 35 throws instead of 25 throws, we win the game.
Then call an audible. Then call an audible. You're the quarterback. You're the face of the franchise. You're now in your fourth year of the league. You should have responsibility. I'm not disagreeing, saying that he did anything necessarily wrong, but he didn't do anything great, which is all last year. He throws for 150, 200 plus yards. You don't see these huge games where he takes over. Then run the ball. He only had one carry for 8 yards. Do something. You are supposed to be the superstar. I've let him off the hook all last year, but I'm telling you, if he plays that way, the the offensive line is not getting better. You just have to accept that. And you've got to figure out a way to make this work. Otherwise, we will be a 9-8 team or worse for 3 years in a row.
Jack, your analysis has been spot on. You're exactly right. He did not lose the game. And so that was not but he did not win the game. You watch the NFL, you look at Stafford, he's down 17-3 and he comes back and takes the lead. You look at Goff, he ties it and then wins it in overtime. You look at Hurts and Love going back and forth. You look at Stroud, even when they were feeling the pressure in the fourth quarter. Like, all these guys are stepping up at key critical moments. And guess what? There were 3 drives that were critical for Trevor to make a play. Now, some of it, Joey, you're spot on. Kirk and Ingram both had critical drops on third down. So like, those aren't necessarily Trevor's fault. But the reality is, so you look at the first drive in the beginning of the second half, right? So the Dolphins score a touchdown. We get that field goal. We're down technically 7-3 in the middle 8. So the last 4 minutes of the second quarter and the first 4 minutes of the third quarter, which is such a critical time in an NFL game. You're up 17-7 at the score, but you're down 17-3 in that middle 8. What do? You could come out here and get a field goal and really start to put the pressure on Miami. You go 3 and out with a quick punt. And then they score the long touchdown on the 80-yard play. Miami's got all the momentum. What do? You go 4 and out, essentially, because of the decision to go for it on fourth down, which we'll talk about later. And then also, when they finally tie it, you have another chance with a couple minutes left in the game at this point to establish a drive, kick a field goal, win the game, and you're the hero. And all we do is move backwards 15 yards on those 3 plays. And so, Jack, it is spot on. Like, at the end of the day, Trevor, especially in some critical moments, especially when the game is on the line, we've questioned the clutchness before, and I think that is still the narrative. I mean, that's a Blake Bortles-esque second half performance.
Oh, y'all are just so wrong. It's so different. Jared Goff did nothing. They ran the ball to win the game. Matt Stafford has a good offensive line that he has a pocket, able to pass it. It's not his fault. Anton Harrison whiffed on multiple blocks and just let someone run into him. And he didn't even have a chance to do a hot read. When you get the ball and then all of a sudden Calais Campbell's in your face, that's a different story. Like, you can't blame Trevor. He's not a god. He can't just make anything happen. You have to give him somewhat of a time. Look at the throw to Tyreek Hill. Tua had all day to throw that ball. That was on the defensive line for not getting to him. That allowed him to not only look off someone, but also throw it way down the field. Trevor didn't get that opportunity. You can't blame Trevor on this at all. It is on the coaching. It is on ETN. It is on Christian Kirk, and it's on Ingram. Those are your big 4 people that it is on. It is not on Trevor at all.
I agree that the fault of the game is on those players for the mistakes, but I'm just saying we cannot just, I mean, I guess we can, but there's a reason that everyone else in the NFL said that Trevor Lawrence was vastly overpaid, that he's a 10 to 15 quarterback ranking, and it's only diehard Jags fans that are saying, "Oh no, he's elite. Oh, he should be in the category of other."
Vastly overpaid. That throw to BTJ in the end zone.
It was beautiful.
The NFL.
You can't just pick. You can't cherry pick one throw. Joey, you can't cherry pick one throw. You look at that throw that Anthony Richardson made. Holy cow. I was like 73 yards, rope on the line, off platform.
Jackpot, dead or alive, backyard ball. Yes.
That was not. Name me another quarterback that could actually throw the ball that far.
80 yards, but he's not a quarterback that can drive down the
The difference between Trevor and your boy Josh Allen is Josh Allen right now has nobody around him. His team is not very good on offense. And their rookie looks a lot worse, at least early on, than our rookie. And yet they find a way to score 30 some odd points. And even when they're down, he finds a way to just calls his own number and just keeps scoring touchdowns and keeps the chains moving. So like, that is the difference between Josh Allen, who's a bona fide top 5 quarterback right now in the NFL, and Trevor Lawrence, who is a 10 to 15 quarterback.
The whole game would be different. All those drops, by the way, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, those are third downs. We were 2 and 10 on third down. So Trevor didn't have chances to keep throwing the ball. If you're guys who you're paying $18 million a year to Christian Kirk, and he's dropping 2 third down critical, continue the drive plays, then you have Evan Ingram dropping a third down play, extending the drive, which means you get more plays, which means you have more chances to throw the ball and look better, that would have changed the game. It's not on Trevor that his players drop the ball.
It's a both and to me. Yeah, the 2 and 10 on third down was brutal. Kirk was bad. Ingram was bad. Washington only got one target. So a lot of the guys that have been on the team for a while did not play well. You hope they turn it around in the future. But let's talk about some bright spots. Joey, we'll let you do your victory lap because JT and I were totally wrong on Tank Bigsby. Yes, it was one game, but he more than doubled his career high. And so to see Tank run 12 carries, 73 yards, and he just looked better, more explosive. He looked a lot better than ETN in week one. So Joey, hats off to you for calling Tank Bigsby as RB1 potential very, very early in the offseason.
Joey, I was dead wrong on that. You were dead right on that. Tank Bigsby looked great. He and ETN, I thought both had nice games, but ultimately Tank had the same amount of carries than Travis Etienne. So yeah, props to you for that call.
Yeah, same carries, but one average 6.1 yards, Tank Bigsby versus 3.7, Travis Etienne. I'm not saying Travis isn't good. He definitely is, and I definitely think that it just wasn't quite his game. But also, Gabe Davis targeted 3 times, caught it 3 times, 62 yards, averaged 20 yards per catch. These new guys are playing well, and the people who've been on this team need to step up. I was just very disappointed, but absolutely love Tank making big plays. Every scoring drive came off a Tank Bigsby big run. Not saying that that's what's going to be happening, but just love that he was setting it up, set the tone, and great to see that we're getting some new performances out of some new players.
Yeah, what's interesting to me too when we talk about the wide receivers, you actually look at the snap count. Gabe Davis was 94% of the snaps out there. Kirk only 72, BTJ 77, which means most of the time in a 2 wide receiver set, BTJ was a second wide receiver. Occasionally Kirk took BTJ's spot, but Gabe Davis is always out there. So the expectation is that Gabe Davis has more of the role that Calvin Ridley had last year. 3 for 62 was nice. Brian Thomas 4 for 47 and a touchdown. All of that in the first half. Christian Kirk 1 for 30. That was concerning. But for those that remember, in week 1 of last year, Christian Kirk was 1 of 6 in week 1. 1 for 9 in week 1, and Ridley was 8 for 101. Meanwhile, week 2, when we play the Chiefs at home, Kirk goes off for 11 for 111. And Ridley is 2 for 32. So net, it is one game. I'm not ready to apologize to you for Gabe Davis. In my mind, Gabe Davis did exactly similar to what I thought he would. Here, I thought he was fine. He wasn't anything special so far, but he was the Jaguars' leading receiver on a day where Trevor just didn't have that many passing yards.
Yeah, you're going to see Gabe a lot because he is a very good blocker as well. Love that energy from him. And then Brian Thomas Jr. deserves a ton of love. 4 catches, 47, a touchdown, but also had that 41-yard pass interference on Ramsey to set up the 1-yard ETN rush. So if you include those yards, you're talking about 90 yards and 2 touchdowns, catching every target against the highest paid cornerback in the NFL for a rookie in his first game on the road to go and do that. He was incredible. And why we didn't target him in the second half is crazy. He has the potential to be up there in terms of potential with some of the greatest Jaguars receivers.
He certainly had a step. He was explosive. He was better than I thought he was. We used him in more ways than I thought we would. He feels dangerous. And look, the vision is potentially starting to unfold. I think the ultimate goal of drafting Tank where we did was to let Etienne walk at the end of his rookie contract. And the goal was to let Christian Kirk walk at the end of this contract to have BTJ and Gabe Davis as our 1 and 2. So you're potentially seeing some of these glimpses of the future. I need to see more BTJ. I would love to see more. To me though, like in wrapping up the offense here, the thing that was most frustrating is it just never felt like we had a lot of rhythm. And a lot of that probably goes to offensive coordinator. Doug's been pretty mute on who was calling the plays in the first half versus second half, or who was calling the plays at all. I'm going to assume it was probably still Press Taylor for the most part. It just doesn't feel like this offense is still very in sync. Even though at times it looks good, at times Trevor makes some really nice throws. and we have some difficult drops or a tough sack at the wrong time, but it just doesn't feel like it's in sync still.
Yeah, it's still a little out of sync. And Jack, as you mentioned, it's absolutely criminal that BTJ didn't even get a target in the second half. I don't care if he wasn't open or anything. Just run him down the sideline, throw it up. The worst comes it's incomplete, or you draw a PI, catch it, or I mean, very little, maybe it's intercepted. But just take the shot down the field on someone who's got the hot hand. It's just criminal that we didn't have plays lined up for PTJ in the second half. I have to just mark it down as bad coaching and bad plays by the captain. Christian Kirk is a captain wearing a C on his chest, and you're dropping balls that hit you in the hands for third downs. It's just inexcusable. I like that he took responsibility, so it was all on him. He needs to play better, and he understands it. And that's why I have hope that this team is going to swallow this bad pill and change. But I want to get to some positives, and that was the defense. A very, very positive first game for Ryan Nielsen and that defense. They did almost everything other than one play correctly, held an incredible Dolphins offense to 20 points. 95% of the time you held the Dolphins to 20 points, you win that game.
Not only did they hold him to 20 points, but they were on the field significantly longer than the Jaguars. They had 7 possessions where you hold the Dolphins to 0 points. That's great. The Dolphins, as we outlined, was very healthy coming into this game, right? So if you look at some of the trending metrics back in December and January of how the Dolphins finished the season, it makes sense why their offense was worse, is because you have all these small, quick guys that can't necessarily stand the course of the season. Look, they played very, very well. They held him in check outside of that one play. The only thing, if I was really nitpicking, that was a little frustrating on defense is 2 things, I guess. Number one, and they kind of go hand in hand, it was 8 of 16 on third down, while the Jaguars were 2 of 10 on third down. I think my key to the game last week was under 30%, which we weren't. Which, hey, look, that's a compounding effect because that's your offense is off the field longer, and just so many other kind of situations there. The other piece is Devon Achane was 7 of 76. You shouldn't have a running back going 7 of 76. Most of that was screen passes, and a lot of times that was Devon Achane breaking the first or sometimes second tackle, going for 10, 20, 30 yards on some of those plays. So that to me was somewhat concerning and something you want to see cleaned up when Jacksonville has historically struggled to stop some of these running back screens and short game.
Yeah, that's a good point, JT. There was definitely some problems on defense. This wasn't a perfect performance. I mean, anytime you give up 338 yards in the air, where nearly 250 of them were yards after catch, but that's what the Dolphins do. And this is the big difference in the game to me, is the difference between offensive play calling and defensive play calling. Because I want to do something we've never done before on the Jag Bros. The presidential debates are tonight. And so I'm going to get political for a second and say Ryan Nielsen for president. I thought his game plan was fantastic with the talent he has on the field, holding them to 20 points, holding them to 7 points in the first half, getting 3 sacks on a guy that typically does not get sacked very often, seeing Trayvon Walker go off for 2 sacks, seeing a bunch of tackles for loss. And other than 1 or 2 big throws, the defense was very, very good. And it was the Jags offensive play calling where, if I can go back to that for just a second, because I do want to just say, yes, I did not love Trevor in the game, but he was 0% of the fault. I think 100% of the fault was on offensive play calling. They got way too conservative. They tried to play to not lose the game instead of trying to win the game in the second half, only throwing the ball 7 times. I thought the defensive play calling led to the best possible outcome, where all 3 of us predicted a Jags win with the Dolphins scoring more than 20 points. So I thought the defense was very, very good. And going up against a historic offense on the road, holding them to 20 points, hats off to Nielsen and to a lot of the Jags defenders.
I thought the defense played great. As JT mentioned, some of the Achane stuff. Antonio Johnson missed some tackles where he just kind of slid off the guy. If he had made those tackles, one was for a loss, another one was like right at the line of scrimmage. With HN, he just over pursued. You really got to break down. You know that he's going to make some sort of stutter step. They don't usually just catch and run. It's usually some sort of juke move, and he just didn't slow down and break down and try to make that tackle. It's unfortunate, but there were a lot of other credible plays. Foye was all over the place making tackles. Savage was everywhere making pass deflections and tackles. It was very good. Trayvon, as we saw, looks like he's about to have a beast of a season. 2 sacks already. I wanted to see more out of Josh Hines, Allen. I don't think he rushes well from the inside. I think he would benefit more playing like a Micah Parsons, where you rotate him and he only rushes from the outside. That's where he had his success last year, and I think that's where he has his best rushes, is making a move, offensive tackle, and getting to the quarterback instead of trying to go up against a guard and trying to power his way through. I think he's more of a finesse than Walker, who's a little more power. So I wish we would change that up for Josh. But overall, yes, the defense was incredible, holding them to 20 points. They held them to 7 points throughout most of the third quarter.
Right.
They really only gave up that one big play, or else they only held them to 2 field goals in the second half. I mean, they played incredible. I just wish that the offense could have played just minorly well in the second half and we win the game.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot of ways we win that game if the offense does better. And look, I already highlighted the fact that 7 possessions you hold the Dolphins to 0 points. You usually win those type of games. Devin Lloyd was the highest Pro Football Focus player on the Jaguars, and maybe even in that game at a little over 87. So great to see him and Aluakon having a great game. The other thing too that was interesting I saw on Twitter is that Allen and Walker dropped back in coverage 1 time combined for the entire game versus both of those averaging about 15% individually dropping back. So to your point, Jack, a great game plan for him. And there's a couple of times where we got beat on some big plays. And I think it was just Darby being a half step slower than both Waddle and Hill on a lot of those plays. There's very, very few receiving cores in the NFL that are going to be as fast and as dangerous as that combo. One thing that is concerning, we saw Campbell leave in the second half again, so it'll be interesting hearing what the injury report looks like there.
Yeah, big red flag there, because we do know now it was a hamstring injury. So every Jags fan right now is just kind of holding their breath, hoping that this is not going to be a repeat of 2023 where he's off and on and clearly not playing at 100%, because we just saw, I mean, hamstring injury could be a season ruiner for Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, this just begs the question why we were in a rush to give him this big contract when it seems like he's now injury prone. That hamstring lasted not even a game, and it's already re-injured. I hope that he can get it back healthy and he figures out, I don't care if he goes see a voodoo doctor, acupuncture, whatever. Figure out how to keep that hamstring healthy, because we just paid you a ton of money and we need you out on that field. I think he played well up until that point, and it is definitely going to be clear when he's not on the field. It'll be a question on who we kind of wrote. Is it going to be a rotation? Is it going to be Montana Brown with Prince and maybe Jarian Jones, or is it going to be just one player? I'd like to see what Ryan Nielsen kind of has in plan for while Campbell's out, but he has to stay healthy and he needs to get back quickly, because we're not paying you all this money so you can sit on the sideline.
Hey, one thing that's interesting, an immediate difference too, is we saw 24% of the snaps Jarian Jones was out there. Like, we were begging to see more of Antonio Johnson, who actually played 100% of snaps last year, where he popped at times as a rookie. Yeah, he had a couple missed tackles, but I thought by and large had a pretty good game. Jarian Jones too, like, hey, rookie first start against the, or not start, but first play against the Dolphins. That is great to see him out there as significantly as he was. He's somebody we're going to want to continue to keep our eyes on his play.
Johnson had 9 tackles. He did have some missed tackles, but the safety play overall was weak. Cisco was very disappointing. And I love that point, JT, because it does alleviate at least some of the pressure of if Campbell is going to struggle with injuries for a while, because the Jags defense played either 17 or 18 different guys, maybe even close to 20 on the field. So Ryan Nielsen, especially with the Dolphins, so many weapons, he was willing and ready to go to pretty much anyone and everyone. And there wasn't a ton of horrible players on defense, which was good to see. So I think this is going to be a deeper defense. And again, I think a ton of that credit goes to Nielsen and getting all these guys, whether it's Jarian Jones, a rookie, or Muma or Ventrell Miller in his first real season, all ready to go and playing at a pretty high level.
One thing I loved seeing as well, just looking at the snap count again, Chad Muma only 14% of snaps. And look, he's made some nice plays, but against the Dolphins, having 3 linebackers would have been suicide. And so the fact that we played Devin Lloyd and Oluokun the majority of the time at linebacker makes sense for both of them to be out there. Devin Lloyd being faster, one of the fastest of our linebacking core, and playing a lot more corners and safeties. Look, he had a great game plan to hold the Dolphins under 20. Certainly good enough to win. Just another reason why it's disappointing the Jaguars lost on Sunday.
Well, as we kind of wrap up the breakdown of the game, we always talk about special teams, which was pretty quiet for the Jags. Parker Washington had that really scary fumble that somehow he magically was able to get the ball away from some giant Dolphins guys and cover up his own mistake. But Cam Little, great to see him kick a 53-yarder. And then coaching, we've hammered on it some, but any kind of final thoughts? Of course, there was the giant head scratcher going for it on 4th down on their side of the field with the lead, where even Draymond Green is, I guess, watching the game, said that the worst play call of the year already goes to Doug Peterson because of that.
It was dumb. That was a Madden rage decision right there, where it's like, oh, sure, we can get 1 yard. We need something. I'm sick and tired of getting 3 and outs. Let's just go for it all here. It's just dumb, and that was frustrating. And Doug does this at times, and sometimes it pays off, but that was frustrating. And we actually kind of got bailed out because they missed the field goal there. But the Dolphins already had all the momentum, and then for them to get the ball back in field goal range, it reeked of desperation.
The play call was dumb too. Why go to ETN, who had been struggling that game as well? Tank was the hot hand if you were going to run the ball or do something. That was not the play at all.
As good as Tank was, I think he had the 3rd down carry and he got stuffed. And look, Tank is Jack and I were both wrong on Tank. He's looked really well in game 1. He looked explosive, but even in preseason and in this game, in 3rd and 1 situations, he was not getting that 1 yard. Now you could blame the offensive line, and that is absolutely fair. But ultimately, we just haven't been a team the last 2 or 3 years to be able to get one. Really, since Leonard Fournette. Since we've had 3rd and 1, it feels more not 50-50. Like for 3rd and 1 for the Eagles and the Hurts push, like it felt like that was 99% chance of getting it. For us, it feels like 3rd and 1 is like a 30% chance of getting it.
We saw the Dolphins go get a fullback, which Joey, I know you've called out several times before, and they were able to convert two of their big 3rd and short plays run into a fullback for 3 or 4 yards. So we just don't have that personnel to shove it down their throat.
Well, and you bring up the Tank miss on the 3rd down, but that was a cutesy play where they put Tank and ETN in the backfield, and they handed it off to Tank as if he was a fullback. So you don't get as many yards back to where you can gain speed and push the pile. And then you lose out on the fullback helping add an extra blocker. I don't know why we got cutesy. We have Evan Ingram's been rolling kind of as a fullback. I would have liked to see Evan Ingram there, and then you have Tank, and then you just push the pile. I understand we have, Hurt from last year, but it seemed like we were doing better during the game. But then all of a sudden, when the chips got down, we weren't confident enough to do it again. As Jack said, we do a slow developing play to where we try to stretch it on the outside. The outside was the entire problem for this offense. All the rush came right off of the tackles. It came straight from the outside. They weren't rushing that hard up the middle. If you look at the pocket, the middle was where the protection was the best, and the outside where Phillips was coming in, Campbell, it was just crazy. The fact that we just didn't trust enough to go right up the nose and right up the middle is just sad.
The irony is that the Dolphins literally did that exact same formation and hand off to the up back, the fullback in their situation on 3rd and 1, and they got it on the last drive of the game. So that was, I think, what was equally as frustrating is
the reality is, I think most, certainly 2020 hindsight, you should have just never gone for it. Whether the play call was right or not, it should have been a punt. Logan Cook was cooking all game. But as we wrap up, we do want to, we're going to track this every week of the season, the Jag Bros bets. And so go back and listen to week 1 preview if you missed that. But Joey, with winning 400 points on Tank Bigsby, JT and I, we lost 400 points on Tank Bigsby. Y'all can probably guess Joey is in first place with 500. JT, you are in second with 100, and I am in dead last with negative 200. So we're going to do a punishment. Y'all better come up with something quick so I don't drop that idea.
Yes, y'all lost it. I told you on Tank Bigsby looked good, and the eye test from preseason prevailed. Can't wait for the next game for Jag Bet against the Browns. Looks like we have a fairly good, clean game coming up. The Cowboys wrecked them. Deshaun Watson looks not very good. So love to see what our defense can do against them, and then hopefully our offense can put something together against the hard Browns defense.
100%.
So,
make sure you subscribe, because that'll be our next episode bringing down that game. Jags are currently 3.5-point favorite, so hopefully we get things right back in Jacksonville and back in Duval.
Thanks for listening to our first episode here, breaking down the game. A disappointing result here in week 1. Each week we're going to do 2 episodes, one breaking down the previous one, the other previewing the game ahead. So as Joey hinted at, we will be talking about the Browns game here later this week. If you guys like our content, leave us reviews wherever you get your podcast. It helps the algorithms so that we can continue to be up there and help us to be able to spread the word. Share the love if you're enjoying the Jag Bros podcast that we do each week. And we'll finish our podcast with 3 brothers. Duval.